Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I am your host, Stephen Pinecker, and this is a very special Mormon Media Reviews segment and about a very special guest about a very special event that's happening on February 13th in Salt Lake City. I'm coming out. Rebecca's going to be there, and our guest, Geoff Pingree, is going to be for a special screening of his movie, The Return of Elder Pingree. Geoff Pingree, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and glad to be going to Utah.
Yes, that's great. And of course, you're in Ohio. How's the weather there?
It's miserable.
I don't know if we can promise anything different in February here in Utah, but we'll cross our fingers.
We'll cross our fingers. So basically what, it's very interesting because, I was talking to John DeLynn the other day about you and kind of was just, he was like, what's the motivation here, Steve? Why are you so enamored with the story? So because what I like about this movie is that it really encapsulates a lot of what I'm also trying to do at the channel, which is a faith journey, a faith crisis, self-discovery, learning about things and continuing forth on your journey, which I kind of feel is what this venture is. I feel that what that is your venture that you did with the film. I feel like the story is still ongoing, still being told. And so I think that that's why I love the film. And the other thing about it is even though Geoff is no longer a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I go to True Blue Mormons and say, if you want a faith-affirming film, in many ways, this is a fantastic film to watch. It's nuanced, it's complicated, but if you watch the movie, The Return of Elder Pingree, I think you'll come away feeling pretty good about your church and the experience of your church. And I thought that was one of the most biggest takeaways of the film. What do you say to that, Geoff?
Wow. Well, technically, I think I am still a member of the church, but you're right. I don't attend. I don't really practice, and I'm certainly not an Orthodox Mormon, and it's been that way for a long time. The idea that people would come away feeling like it's a faith affirming film, I think that's good. Because I worked very hard to be respectful and generous in every direction. There's if we wanted to just have a podcast where I dived into my anger about things, there's plenty there. So that's not the question. But I don't think, I think it's pretty common for people when they run into trouble with whatever their belief system is to, when they feel like they can't fit in it anymore, then there's usually a lot of anger and disillusionment. And disillusionment is usually a source of a lot of pretty deep distress and unhappiness. And so I think it's pretty natural and understandable that people turn it on the institution or the organization that they feel has somehow betrayed them or let them down or disappointed them. And I certainly felt those things, but it doesn't really help me to just be angry at an institution. That doesn't go very far. And I mean, I'm not going to deny it. It can be fun to sit around and trash whatever you want to trash if you're mad at it. But I guess I think that if I want to take my life seriously and the meaning of my life, then I have to take these questions seriously. And in some ways, my disillusionment with the church is about instances or experiences where I feel like I wasn't taken seriously as a human being who was struggling sincerely with his beliefs. And so that kind of flips the equation around, I guess. The people that I'm most comfortable around who are or are not practicing Mormons or anything are people who are, I think, who have paid a price for their beliefs in the sense that they really looked hard at themselves and been honest. And usually what that means is that they are not in any way reactive or judgmental of what other people are doing. They're just curious and interested to understand it. And so, and I certainly feel that with you two, that understanding is kind of paramount for you. You're not jumping in with an agenda or a kind of angle, and you're trying to understand my story and me on the terms I'm telling it. And it's sort of a joke to me how long it took for me to make this film. But at the same time, one thing that came out of it is that I feel pretty comfortable with it being in the world forever, because I knew when it went out that it was sort of something I was going to say and that I could never take it back.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to talk, we are going to talk more about this event that's coming, but I failed to introduce my lovely co-host, Rebecca Biblioteca. I imagine you have a few things you'd like to say and ask questions to Geoff as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think you even have to introduce me anymore, Steve, because I'm always here. I'm always on your channel, it seems like. No, when I discovered this movie and my husband and I watched it, and he served in Mexico City on his mission right in the middle of the big earthquake. And we watched this together, and both of us were just absolutely blown away for different reasons. I mean, I did not serve a mission, but I related to someone who was just a curious, thinking, introspective kind of a person that wanted to return to a place of meaning, and sort of deconstruct and interact with the people that he loved, had an absolute genuine love that comes through so clearly in the film, and they have a love for him, and just interact on real terms. And to me, as a post-Mormon, that really impacted me, because lots of times a lot of post-Mormons cannot interact in any kind of authentic way with the people around them, family or neighbors, for different reasons. They just can't quite be themselves. And it was very inspiring to see Geoff just return and say, here's who I was, here's who I am, I still care about you, you still care about me. I mean, it was extremely positive and inspiring in that way. And then, of course, my husband watched it and was just overwhelmed by the whole idea of the mission experience, similarities to how he felt in the mid 80s on his mission there, and the people. So after we watched it, we kind of delved into looking more about it, like, who made it? What's the story? Why don't we know about this kind of? Because I run kind of a Facebook page called The Good Media Club, where I kind of curate Mormon media. I find it from the past. I put it on there so people can look at it, the good, the bad, the ugly. I had never heard of this. And so then to learn kind of the backstory that it had come out before COVID, which I think kind of blocked it, won awards everywhere, but so little known by maybe the audience that would appreciate it on such an intimate level. I mean, obviously people everywhere appreciated it because it is, multi-award winning, but this particular audience, the post-Mormons, the nuanced Mormons, the faithful Mormons, who it could maybe help understand a post-Mormon's journey better. I just felt like there's got to be a way to get this out there. So I started putting it all over the different social media sites that I run or am on. And of course, Steve started doing the same when I brought it to his attention. And then we kind of thought, well, let's go a step farther. We got to bring this here to the heart of the heart, right? And we got to get Geoff here and Steve here. So that's kind of how it all started. But it just had an impact in different ways on me and on my husband. There's just something relatable in every way. And it's such an authentic, wouldn't you agree, Steve? Such an authentic journey. Every iota of it is authentic, and it just really comes through. So that's kind of my thoughts on it, and my, again, like you said, evangelizing.
One of the things too is, of course, this is a powerful film, and I actually cried watching it, even though I don't have any direct connection to this world. At least I never grew up in it, but I felt a real. One of the things I really liked about the movie is that the people. These people that live very simple lives, they're very poor in many cases, so especially compared to the Americans, and yet they had a real tender faith about them that I really admired. I thought that they were just, and you even say in the film that their lives in many ways are better off because they joined the church. And so maybe just talk about that too, about the faithfulness of the people, that I think is really the star in many ways of the show.
Well, when I returned after my mission, I realized that although I had filled 4 journals and taken like 2,000, 35 millimeter slides and had written hundreds and hundreds of letters, I never really wanted to look at that stuff anymore. And yet I thought about the people, and I think that what started to get a lot of things turning was I thought about what friendship means and what connection with other people means when it's sincere and charitable and loving. I guess what love means really between people, And I thought, if my beliefs change, does that change those relationships? Are they, am I no longer their friend? Are they my friend? What's between us now? Because when they joined the church, what was between us, or a lot of what was between us, was the context of, sort of the Mormon gospel. And for many of them, I played an outsized role in their story of faith and their path towards whatever truth they find. And there are a lot of contradictions there, a lot of pieces that don't fit. And going back, it is interesting how incredibly how moving their sincerity and faith and straightforwardness is. They don't, I mean, if you've seen it, they don't pull punches. They don't filter what they say to me. And sometimes it's very painful, because I think they're pretty honest about expressing their disappointment or expressing what they, how they see the situation, what they think of what's going on with me. But, one thing that I think I've learned in making the film that seems maybe pretty obvious, but it wasn't to me at the time, is, heartbreak moves in all directions. And I'm very familiar with people in the church who are heartbroken because members of their family have left, but it's just as heartbreaking for someone who leaves, because something that has been there, relationships that are built around shared beliefs are fractured in some way. And that's, I think, pretty heartbreaking for everybody. Now, people mask it or express it or articulate it in very different ways. But I don't think that the core factor of that is changes. I think that's a deeply painful experience for anyone when you have a fundamental loving relationship with someone, and it in some ways fractures or breaks, even if you then rebuild it, which is effectively what I was sort of doing in Guatemala with the film. But am I answering your question,
Yeah,
Steve?
yeah. And I think that's important, and actually that reminds me of when I interviewed Don Bradley for my program, and we talked about, both of us went through an atheist phase. And one of the things I pointed out in that conversation is that people don't realize that atheists go through a grieving phase because they lost their best friend. And I think that that's an important thing that people don't realize, that even, they've lost their institutions, they've lost something that was really important to them through their church, or they've lost their faith in God, they've lost a friend. And that's can be a very devastating thing that people go through. And of course, your journey is something along those lines as well, that you had to go through this process. It took you freaking 13 years to make the movie because you had to work these things out.
Yeah, I think that's true. And one of the interesting things is, if I had had a family that disowned me when I left the church, it would be a different story. It might have a greater deal of notoriety or sort of public hook, because those kinds of stories are interesting to people. Someone who's in a group and then leaves, and there's a horrible. It draws your attention, even if it doesn't. It's not very satisfying. And but in my case, that really wasn't what was happening. And in some ways, I think the journey for me forward and out of the church, but also just to figure out what I really wanted and believed, was in some ways delayed because my family was so supportive. And I don't know if delayed is the word. It was extended. Maybe it was enriched, but it was, I never had a period where I was at direct odds with my family. I had periods where we felt some alienation and awkwardness, and of course there was anger and disagreement and conflict, but there wasn't. I mean, when I was a little kid, I remember in a family home evening, my parents saying to us when we were little kids, sitting us down and saying, "Whatever happens in your life, you'll always be welcome in our home," and I think that stuck with me. And that is how my parents operated. And so in some ways it provided a supportive context for me to sort of do all this, the film being kind of an embodiment of my journey. But I think it also did make it harder to draw clear lines and see what I was doing. And sometimes when someone leaves the church and their family disowns them, I'm sure it's horribly painful, but it's also very clear. So that's I can keep going, but that's
fascinating, because I used to hang out with a bunch of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and in many ways they get their disfellowship, DF'd, and they get shunned in a way that even Latter-day Saints don't get shunned. It's a really devastating thing, and many of them never got over it. Some died of drug overdoses, some got murdered, and some are still struggling with that happening to them, being cut off from their family. So this is real stuff, dude. This is all real, and this does affect people. And that's the thing about, part of the thing about what I'm trying to do is to help people receive restoration and healing through going through difficult times. Of course, it happened to me. I had a dark decade of the soul. Was an atheist for a long time, and now I'm on the other side of that. And when you're on the other side of that, you're almost like, man, I just want to get as many people over here with me so they can be at that place too. That's what I'm trying to. So I'm an evangelist for inner peace and being in love. I mean, being in love with yourself in one sense and accepting of your situation, and also let your faith sustain you in many different ways. Rebecca, I just wanted to mention too, of course, I wanted you to talk a little bit. We got some sponsors that are going to be kind of like putting their names on this. I just want you to talk a little bit about some of the people that are going to be helping this event, which is February 13th, and we're going to give details, and plus folks will have links in the description for more information as well. So talk a little bit about that, Rebecca.
Absolutely. The longer we plan this project, the more people say, well, I want to get on board with that. I want to help. So our list of sponsors is long now, which is great. So of course we have Steve, been there from the beginning with Mormon Book Reviews and Mormon Media Reviews. And then myself and my co-founder of The Good Book Club, that would be Landon Brophy. We were also at the beginning trying to put things together. We also have a podcast called Mormonish Podcast, where we talk to Geoff, and I've been promoting it there pretty heavily. And then some other people wanted to get involved. We have a wonderful person named Bill Knowlton, who runs Ally Parent Apparel, which is an apparel line. As a post-Mormon, he started a clothing line to support LGBTQ. And so he is going to be, I believe, donating some items. We may raffle some things off. That's going to be really fun. Of course, we have Mormon Stories. They're behind us too, and we're advertising on their social media and using some of their resources. And we also have Thrive Beyond Religion, which is a group that has events all over the country to support post or nuanced Mormons, as they look for community, which is exactly what this film is about, finding community and making connections like that. So can you think of anyone I've forgotten, Steve? I think I've gone down the whole list.
I think so. I think
definitely.
So too. And also, by the way, if there's any other podcasts or groups that want to kind of throw their hat in this endeavor, we'd really appreciate it. By the way, I want to thank 21st Century Saints, based out of Scotland. I was on their show today and was able to promote it, and we'll be going on some other programs to talk about it, both Rebecca and I. So we want to thank in advance all those who will be having us on, even ones we don't even know for sure what. So we're going to try to promote it there. And that's the thing. I want everybody who's an audience member of my show, whether you are an atheist, which is agnostic, which is about a third of my audience, whether you're an evangelical, whether you're a Mormon, whether you're a post-Mormon, whether you're progressive or TBM, don't matter. I want everybody to feel comfortable at this place to watch this film. Because like I said, it's about somebody that no longer affiliates with the church, but also has issues. Okay, that's fine. We all do. But also has been able to find a kind of a peace about this thing and was able to make this movie to tell his story, which I said at the beginning is in many ways very faith promoting and affirming. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. So that's why when people ask me why this film, Steve, I said, because this kind of epitomizes what I'm trying to do. And so I want everybody to feel comfortable coming out to this event. Geoff, what do you have anything else you'd like to add to this as well? And before we give some more details on this event?
Well, I had a weird anecdote, but I don't know if you want to hear it.
Oh, we're always for it. Yeah,
of course
always.
we do. Of course.
I was thinking as you were talking, I have a really great therapist, and she was a political refugee from an Eastern Bloc country in the 60s. And so she grew up in a communist system and was an atheist. And all the years that I saw her, I knew that. And then a couple of years ago, she told me that she was no longer an atheist. And she actually wrote this book and self-published it about finding God. And it was interesting because at first I was really disappointed. I remember thinking, wait a minute, because it felt like everything was shifting. I'm not disappointed anymore, but that was a really interesting experience. And I think I'm bringing it up because I think, you mentioned your various positions, Steve, in your journey, and I think it can be very disorienting because we're talking about, we're not talking about a lifestyle. Well, we are talking about lifestyle choice, but we're not talking about clothing or food, or we're talking about really fundamental questions. I've always thought, if you don't take the question of God seriously, then you're not really very serious about your life. Even if what you decide is there is no God. And I guess I think when you're looking at these kinds of questions, the implications and consequences are pretty large. So anyway, that just came to my mind, and there it is. But
Yeah,
I'm still my therapist, and I'm happy with her.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, and yeah, because you were at different spots in your journey. So at some point you're like, what the heck? And then now you're like, no, I get it. That's where you're at now. I would have been what the heck at one time, like, oh, hey, I think that's great. She found faith in God again. I mean, there's something special. There is something truly special about faith in a very unique way. And, I always like to talk about, I mentioned this on another podcast, that, Christopher Hitchens was kind of given a thought experiment. And here he is, one of the four horsemen of the, the apocalypse atheists. He's one of the greatest atheists of all time. And I love his writing. He's awesome. But the thought experiment was proposed to him. Perhaps everybody in the world is now an atheist. Everybody accepts that there's no God. It's a foregone conclusion. Nobody's debating, except there's one holdout that still believes. And they was asked to Christopher, would you go to that person and basically show him how there is no God, and that they're one last person of faith? And he says, no, I wouldn't. And I always thought that was such an important thing that he said, because I think on some level he understood. He understood that it would be a tragedy if that he would be the one to go to the very last person on the planet and destroy their faith. And I think that's a very thoughtful thing for him. Now, Richard Dawkins, he would do it because he's told Christopher Hitchens he would. But I think there was something about that resonated with me even as an atheist. Okay, I kind of see that. And so I think that's the importance of faith and why this is part of our journey. And then so that's why I think your film is so beautiful, because it walks that tightrope, and you give a testimony, and you in the service you're called on to give a testimony. I mean, that to me, that says so much. It's how complicated and how messy this whole thing can be, life and faith. But I think that's why your film encapsulates so much of that beautifully, and that's why I really want to get as many people out to this theater to go see this film. Wherever you are at on the journey, I think it will speak to you on some level.
And can I also mention that if you are not in Utah or you cannot come to the theater, this film can be rented on Amazon Prime Video for $2.99. So even if you are planning to come to the theater, you can watch it ahead of time and then see it again with Geoff. And I think we should absolutely stress Steve will be there, Geoff will be there. I mean, they are coming to town, so this is like a Q&A scenario. So, you can access this on all different levels. It's really going to be wonderful.
So yeah, and actually, folks, if you want to pay $1.99, you can watch it in standard definition. So you don't even have to pay $2.99.
Oh, well, and I think you can own it for like we bought it. I think it was like $10 because we've already watched it probably like 4 or 5 times.
So basically, real quick, I just kind of want to give people an outline of what to expect. Monday, February 13th, Broovies in Salt Lake City. It's called Broovies, and we'll have the address in the description. Okay,
and it's a cinema pub.
So it's a cinema pub restaurant. So it's a place where you can eat food. 21.
We should stress you must be over 21 because it is a cinema pub. That's
right. It's so funny. That's so Utah. I live in Florida here, and kids sit at the bar, so that's crazy.
No, they have some crazy laws here.
Yes, they do. They still do.
It seems to change from establishment to establishment. So yeah, let's just make sure that everyone knows.
Right, everybody knows that.
Okay. Can I just say something? Can I say something about Broovies? I went and checked the theater out when I was visiting my mom over the holidays, and it is a pub, but the theaters are, I thought, it's going to be sort of a screen set up in the middle of the tables. No. These are real nice, large cinema theaters. So I want to emphasize that. And I also want to say, if in doubt, watch it in high definition. Thank you.
Yes. Good call. Yeah, of course. Good call.
That's right.
Shot. Yeah,
I have to say.
I get that totally. And so basically what we're doing, folks, is the doors open at 6:00. So I want you to get in there. It's first come, first serve. We have sending out invitations to VIPs who will be on the list. They'll be let in. And then whatever seats are available. And what is it, about 150, 170
They
capacity?
say 150. They told us, and we're going there on
Maybe a little bit
Saturday to
more than
kind of
that.
check it out, that they
Yeah.
could add chairs up to around 170, 75.
So we don't know.
That's an awesome event if you're adding chairs and there are people
great.
in line.
So let's
I mean,
add some chairs.
great.
Get here there at 6 o'clock. Order your food. All right. Then at 7 sharp, we're going to start screening the film. And then approximately 8:15, 8:20, we're going to do a Q&A with Geoff, where Rebecca and I believe this is the understanding, Rebecca and I are going to be the two people asking the questions. Possibly will we have a microphone open for audience questions if we have time? We do have time constraints, so maybe yes, maybe no. But either way, and then use this. So at 6 o'clock, use this as a social time. After the theater closes, the movie theater has to be emptied out at 9 o'clock because there's something else going on afterwards. But we do plan on mulling around in the restaurant bar area. It's for those of you who'd like to do some interactions and connections and get to know Geoff and us as well. Now, last time I usually do meetups. We usually get good. This is the Mormon Book Reviews meetup as well. So for those of you who want to join for that, that's always available for that as well. And folks, I am coming out to Utah. I'm going to be there from approximately February 8th to 16th. It's very exciting because I will be appearing on some pretty big major podcasts. I will also be interviewing for my podcast as well. So it's going to be a very busy time. But please reach out to me, all you. Sometimes I need a ride. Sometimes I want somebody to take me out for dinner. People volunteer that. So I'd like to, take advantage of the hospitality of all my people out in Utah who I love very much. And speaking of love, Rebecca, I really love you and appreciate everything you've done for this channel. Thank you for doing such a bang up job getting this. There's no way I could do this without you because I'm doing I got 6 different projects going, and you really grabbed this thing and you're making it happen. And I want to thank you because you are so freaking awesome. And I'm so glad to have you as my co-host and as a collaborator. So thanks, Rebecca.
Oh,
I agree. You are awesome, Rebecca. You're awesome.
I'm blushing. Oh my goodness. Well, no, I really believe in this film and the project, and I want as many people as possible to see it because everyone who I've told to see it has just had such a positive response, and all different. All different. It means something different to everyone, but just positive, just wonderful.
Yep, I think that's the important thing. Positive. Let's be conversation starters. This film. Yeah. Family members, if you have people who left your family, left the church, and you want to know what it's like for somebody to go on a journey, this would be a great film to watch. This movie is for all of you, really, in one sense, and even just people who aren't members of evangelicals or people who have left the faith. You're all welcome at the table, at where we want to have these wonderful conversations. And Geoff, I just want to thank you so much for taking your time to do the interview with us initially, where we kind of introduced you and the film to our audience. And I just want to thank you for us being able to come along on this ride of this journey that you're on as well.
Well, thank you for inviting me and for being, engaging with me through all of this. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah, we appreciate you, dude. I think you're cool. And I think you all out there are really cool. Be there or be square. February 13th, 6 o'clock. I'll be in the house. Geoff will be in the house. Rebecca's going to be in the house, and there's going to be a few other people. And so get to meet us and let's have some fun. We're going to have a good time. And that's the most important thing. Also, I just want to remind folks, there will be links in the description for all of the things that we talked about today. Also, for those of you who'd like to financially support the channel, there are links for PayPal, as well as Patreon, as well as the merch store, mormonbookreviews.com, in which you can buy lovely. Do you have a coffee mug? No? Okay, I got one.
It's in the dishwasher.
Okay.
I just realized that right 10 minutes before, so I apologize.
That's all right.
It's my favorite mug.
Yeah, so you get your hot chocolate mugs, all right? And that's the
hot chocolate mug
this time of year. So I want to thank everybody. And just remember, folks, the most important thing is all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.